Hello everyone. Let's begin our deep stretch practice. For this practice, we're going to start laying down on our back. So you can go ahead and come gently down onto your back. When you make it there, wiggle your feet together, bottoms of the feet touching as you let your knees bend out open to the side, coming into supine bound angle pose. We'll rest one hand onto our lower belly and one hand onto our upper chest, letting the elbows slide to the mat beside you. So your hands might be more of at a diagonal between one another. If you are really tight in your hips here and you have a cushion or a yoga block nearby, you might take a block or a cushion underneath each thigh for a little bit more support. Or you can simply do the opposite of this pose, bringing your feet the width of the mat and your knees together to touch, coming into constructive resting pose. So wherever you are, just let your eyes close down, relax your jaw, and settle into your space for practice. Letting go of what you might have done earlier today or yesterday, and letting whatever you have to do later today or tomorrow, letting that be in the future. Starting to draw your awareness to your breath, feeling it move through your hand and under your chest and then your belly, and then letting it out. Just taking some deeper breaths here as you start to really monitor the pathway of your breathing. And if you'd like to set an intention for your practice today, perhaps it's to find a way in instead of searching for a way out. I know a lot of times in our yoga poses, especially when we're taking some deeper holds, we can feel this need to want to come out of the pose or want things to be different from the way that they are right now. So let this intention really be with you on your mat as you invite in a little bit more present moment awareness and sit with what is instead of trying to wish for what isn't. And taking a couple more breaths here in your supine bound angle, Supta Baddha Konasana. Just starting to send the breath down a little deeper into the belly. And then you can use your hands if you'd like. We'll slowly begin to close the knees. We'll take a nice full body stretch, extending the legs out long in front of us and reaching the arms overhead like we just awoke from a deep nap. Taking one more inhale. And as you exhale, begin to draw your knees into your chest. We'll begin a back and forward rock on our spine, like you were going to come up to sitting or standing. Inhaling to rock back to the tips of the shoulder blades, and exhaling, rocking forward towards the tip of the tailbone. Taking this a few times at your own pace, rock and roll. Massaging out your back with this movement. And taking one more round. And rocking all the way up into a sitting position. As you make it into sitting, let's extend our right leg out to a 45 degrees angle. Then tuck the left foot into the inner right thigh. You might wiggle a little side to side to really root down through your sitting bones. We'll reach our right hand towards our right foot, but don't worry if you can't find the foot. And as you inhale, we'll reach that left arm up And exhale to reach it over your head, coming into a side body stretch. Make sure that the left hip is still rooting into the mat. And imagine that even though you're going towards the right side, your left ribs are pressing into the left side of your body, giving you a nice open stretch to the side bodies. Keep the heart open here and make sure that that left shoulder is relaxed away from the ear. Taking one more breath into that left side body, into those intercostal muscles. And then slowly inhale, reach that left arm up to sit up. And exhale, release the left hand down. We'll take our left hand just a little bit behind us. And for our half circle, we'll inhale to lift our hips, reaching that right arm all the way over your head, stretching out through the right side body. Really press your hips out in front of you. Inhale. And as you exhale, we'll gently have a seat. Taking that left leg out now to a 45 degrees angle, keeping your legs at a nice V shape and flexing your feet so the toes are up. Take your fingertips out in front of you and see if you can tilt your pelvis just a little bit more forward, as though if you had a tail, you wouldn't be crushing it behind you. Inhale, reach your heart forward. Try to make a little bit more length in your spine. And as you exhale, begin to creepy crawl your hands just a little bit more forward, coming into your wide leg forward fold. Keep those toes up. They're going to want to collapse in a little bit. And keep making space for that imaginary tail behind you with the nice forward tilt of your pelvis. It doesn't matter how far you go. We're just starting to warm up. Perhaps using an inhale to lengthen your heart out just a little bit more. And as you exhale, if you'd like to go any amount deeper here, feel free to do so. Taking a couple more breaths. Good job. We'll slowly begin to walk our hands back in towards our body, coming up to sitting. And now let's bend that right knee, taking the right foot into the inner left thigh, and maybe even rocking a little side to side to re-root down through the sitting bones. Keeping the left foot flexed, reaching the left hand towards the left ankle, and then inhaling to reach that right arm up. And exhale to reach it over your head, palm facing down to protect your shoulder as you stretch out the right side of your body. We want to make sure that our right hip stays rooted down in towards our mat and that we're pressing our right ribs into the right side of our body so we don't feel like we're collapsing into the left side. It's not about reaching your hand overhead to your foot. It's just about opening up the space laterally in your spine. Taking one more breath here. And then using an inhale to reach up to sit up. And exhale, taking that right hand a little bit behind you. And inhale to lift your hips, coming into half circle, swinging that left arm all the way over your head, finding a nice side body stretch for the left side. Press your hips out in front of you, take a breath in. And as you breathe out, we'll gently come back into a sitting position. This time extending your right leg and then your left leg out in front of you, coming into seated staff pose as you make your feet nice and flexed and sitting up nice and tall. Take your fingertips to the ground beside your thighs and inhale, sit up a little bit taller, really pulling the weight out of your pelvis. And as you exhale, maybe you creep your hands just a little bit more forward, keeping your feet actively flexed and your back as straight as it can be, still sticking out that imaginary tail behind you. Imagine that it's curled up onto the mat behind you. And feeling the stretch through the hamstrings, and even maybe a little bit of strengthening through the back body muscles. Taking another breath in. And as you breathe out, maybe going down a little bit further, not worrying if your back rounds a little bit. If you're really tight here, you can always keep your knees a little bit bent, either with your knees pulling up in towards your chest, hovering over the mat, or for more support, you could slide your cushion or your blocks underneath your knees or thighs. Take another breath into the entire back body. Paschimottanasana is our seated forward bend. And on your next inhale, we'll just start to rise back up to sitting. Good job. We'll begin to sweep our legs around behind us, coming into tabletop on all fours, finding your tabletop with your wrists underneath your shoulders and your knees underneath your hips. As you inhale, start to tilt your pelvis forward, drop your stomach and reach your chest forward, lift your chin for cow. And as you exhale, begin to round your back body up, dropping your tailbone and your head down for cat. Using your inhale again to peel the front body open, coming into cow. And your exhale to round your back body, drop your head for your cat back. Taking 2 more rounds, inhaling for cow. And exhaling for your cat back, rounding navel to spine. Last round, inhale. 2, exhale. And then inhaling back into a neutral spine here, coming into our melting heart pose or puppy. So we're going to walk our hands about 3 to 4, maybe 5 handprints forward on the mat, and we'll start to dive the chest down towards the mat, letting the elbows rest down and the forehead rest down, keeping your hips up nice and high so you have that nice forward tilt of the pelvis still. If you would like a deeper stretch and it's accessible to you, feel free to bring your chin onto the mat. Make sure that you're allowing yourself the space that you need to stretch. For me, I'm pretty tight in this pose, and it makes a little bit more space if I walk my knees a little bit back so that they're behind my hips instead of underneath them. Or you can creep your fingers a little forward and slide your chest a little bit more forward on the mat. Ultimately here, really rooting down through the shoulders, trying to find that way in, even in this uncomfortable pose. So maybe it means making a small movement or deepening your breath, finding that way to stay within your posture. You can always melt the chest, stamp the chest down into the mat if you're really open here. And if you want the most intensity, very intense here, and all of the weight is down through the chest already, you can tuck your toes under and lift your knees away from the mat. Just listen to your body. Taking 1 more breath here in your puppy pose or melting heart Anahatasana. Really opening up the upper spine. And then when you're ready, 1 movement or a few, we'll hinge forward, coming into our Sphinx pose. So letting your hips come forward to land onto the mat, you're essentially laying on your belly, propped up on your forearms. So make sure that your elbows are right underneath your shoulders and that your forearms are parallel to one another, palms facing down. As you inhale, try to grow the crown of the head a little bit taller, pulling the neck out of the shoulders. And as you exhale, try to open up through the collarbones in the front of the chest, really drawing the shoulder heads back, chin parallel to the ground. Taking another breath here in your supported back bend. And then slowly, letting those elbows come out by the side so you can lower your chest down, and taking your hands underneath your shoulders. elbows squeezing into the side body. Inhale, begin to lift your chest a little bit for baby cobra. Keep your feet down. And as you exhale, pull your shoulders away from your ears so you can lift up just a little bit taller with your back body muscles. So if you want to know that you're using your back body muscles, let your hands be lighter on the mat or even lift them away from the ground just an inch, coming into your baby cobra, Bhujangasana. Keep your chin a little bit tucked so you're looking more down than forward, and squeeze your elbows to the side ribs as you take one more breath. And then slowly melt it back down into the mat. We'll go ahead and move into our shoulder stretch now. So let's slide our right arm out to a T beside us. So if you look over to the right arm, make sure the palm is facing down and that your arm is horizontal. It's not at a diagonal beside you. Now, keeping your right arm out to the side, look to the left and gently begin to peel yourself open so that you're kind of rolling onto your right side body with your right arm behind you. You can use your left hand to determine the degree of your stretch. If you push into your left hand a little bit more, you roll open a little bit more and deepen your shoulder stretch. So just finding where you need to be. You can always rest your head on the mat or prop it up on a cushion. I like to keep my head lifted and look over the left shoulder for a deeper stretch. Also, feel free to take any variations with your legs. You may like to take your left foot and rest it a little bit behind your right foot, like scissor legs, to deepen your stretch. Or some of you may like to slide that left foot in so the left knee is bent up for the sky, sole of the left foot onto the ground. Taking a couple more breaths into your right shoulder and the front of your chest. This is a wonderful pose for posture. And when you're ready, with both legs extended, gently coming back onto your belly, taking a moment to pause here. If you're feeling okay for another back bend, feel free to take it. We'll go here together. Otherwise, you can always make a pillow with your hands and let your forehead rest onto the mat. So we'll go ahead, if you want to take your lifted cobra, hands underneath the shoulders, tops of the feet rooted to the mat. This time, pressing those hands into the mat so that you can lift up a little bit higher. Keep your chin just a little bit tucked so the back of your neck stays long and safe. And roll the shoulders away from the ears, really trying to lengthen the neck here. Pull the shoulder blades together in the back, really feel your heart expanding. Taking a breath in. And as you breathe out like a wave, just let your spine start to roll back down onto your mat, one vertebrae at a time. Preparing for our shoulder stretch on the other side. So we'll extend our left arm out to a T beside us, left palm facing down, making sure that arm is straight beside us. And then looking to the right as you press your right hand into the mat and start to peel your body open so you're laying on your left side. Same as the other side, feel free to rest your head or keep it lifted, maybe turning your gaze slightly over your right shoulder. If you feel any pinching or pain in the left shoulder, you may need to creep your left fingertips out just a little bit further behind you. And if you still feel any pinching or pain, please back away from the pose. You can always try again. Feeling free to scissor that right leg behind the left, or even bend the right knee up to the sky. The choice is yours. Just taking a couple more breaths into this opening here in the left shoulder, the front of the chest. Notice that here as we slow down, notice if the mind is trying to find a way out. Maybe the body is present, but the mind is wandering. So see if your breath can help you to come back into your practice fully and completely. Good job. Slowly here, begin to roll back down onto your belly. And when you make it, we'll take our hands behind our back. We'll interlace the fingers. Roll the shoulders away from the mat. And when you're ready, begin to lift everything up for locust pose. Your chest, your hands reaching them towards the back wall, and your legs. Maybe squeezing your inner thighs a little bit towards one another, so perhaps your big toes touch. Still looking more down than forward to keep a long neck. And taking another breath here in your locust pose or shalabhasana. One more inhale, maybe lifting a little higher. And as you exhale, gently release down. You can make a pillow with your hands for your forehead to rest and bend your knees, taking a windshield wiper motion of your feet from side to side, releasing any tension in your lower back this way. And then slowly, beginning to extend your legs, bringing your hands underneath your shoulders and pressing up and then sitting all the way back towards your heels, coming into your child's pose. Your big toes are touching, your knees can be together or they can be separated apart. It's up to you. And just folding down into your mat. Letting your arms relax and your shoulders relax. And your hips be heavy. They don't have to be touching your heels. Just having that sense of grounding. Taking a few breaths into your back body, really letting the forehead rest down on your mat or a cushion or block. And on your next inhale, we'll come up into our tabletop. We'll exhale to walk our hands just about a half of a handprint forward and spreading our fingers wide, pointer finger facing forward for our downward facing dog. Let's tuck our toes under and begin to lift the knees and lift the hips up high, coming into an upside down V shape in your body. Letting your head drop between your biceps and beginning to pedal out your legs, bending one knee and then bending the other knee as you start to wake up your calves and your hamstrings. Almost finding a little rhythm to it with your breath and the movement. Maybe it feels good to come up high onto the toes, stretching out the backs of the toes and the bottoms of the feet. And perhaps even taking a windshield wiper movement of your heels side to side. Just starting to find a deeper connection to your downward facing dog. There's no rush. When you are ready, you can come back to center in your downward facing dog. Really trying to pull the shoulder blades apart on the back body, really broadening the space of the upper back, while keeping the index finger and thumb knuckle or that L pad of your hand really pressing into the mat in opposition. Breathe into the length of your spine. And take one cleansing breath here. In through your nose, filling up. And out of your mouth, letting it go. Slowly look to the space between your hands, inhale. And as you exhale, begin to stiff leg and flat foot walk your feet forward until they come right behind your hands, coming into your standing forward bend. In this pose, make sure your feet are underneath your hips or a little narrower than that. Keep your knees a little bit bent so that there's no gap between your belly and your thighs. You really want to make sure that your belly is glued onto the tops of your thighs so you can really release the back in a safe way. We'll hold on to opposite elbows, letting our head hang heavy in the picture frame of our arms. Maybe taking a gentle sway from side to side, or small little kind of bobs up and down, but make sure that you're really gentle with your movements. Trying to have just a little bit more weight through the front half of your feet, through the balls of your feet, letting your heels be not off of the ground, just a little bit lighter in the distribution of your weight. And just slowly making your way into a still pose if you haven't already, letting your upper body just surrender here, finding that way in, finding that real sense of dropping into your pose here. Good job. Begin to release your hands. Bend your knees as much as you need to take your hands on outside of your feet so your fingertips are in line with your toe tips. And then we'll step our left foot very far back, coming into a runner's lunge. So you want to make sure that the front foot and the back foot are just as far apart as they would be if you were in a plank pose. You know, when your hands and your feet are far apart from one another, like the top of a push-up, take up that much space in your runner's lunge between your front foot and your back foot. Let your back leg be really straight, but sink your hips down and try to reach your heart a little bit more forward. Plant your left palm flat into the mat and inhale to peel your right hand up for the sky, coming into a twist. Try to make sure that the hips don't sway out by the side. Really hug them into the midline. Taking a breath in. And as you breathe out, release your right fingertips back down to the mat. Drop your back knee and untuck your back toes. Inchworm your front foot, maybe about a footprint forward. And then draw your hips back halfway for half split. So your back knee should be supporting you at a 90 degrees angle. You don't want to sit all the way back towards your heel. Flexing your right foot so you're just on your right heel. Toes are activated up towards the sky. And as you inhale, think about your cow back, really pressing your belly down and reaching your heart forward, keeping a soft bend in that right knee. And as you exhale, melting down over that right leg into your stretch, Ardha Hanumanasana, or half split pose. If you do have blocks or something to support your hands on here, feel free to add those in if you feel a little extra tight. You can also be on fingertips and bend the right knee a little bit more to give yourself that same support without any props. And taking another breath. Good job. Slowly here on your inhale, taking it forward into your lunge again. Front knee over top of ankle. And exhale to take your hands to the inside of your right foot. We're going to toe heel our right foot open to the right side of our mat. So it's a little wider than our hip. As you're here, hands underneath shoulders. Tuck your back toes under. Inhale, lift your back knee for just a moment. And as you exhale, lower it back down, but maybe just an inch further behind you to really get into those hips. Make sure that your front knee is still over top of your ankle. If it's not, you can just inchworm your right toes a little bit more forward. Now let's turn our right toes out to a 45 degrees angle. And if you do need a deeper stretch, feel free to drop down onto your left elbow, or you can stay on your left hand. Let's use our right hand to gently press that right knee open, turning our heart towards our right knee. And as you do so, peel onto the outside edge of your right foot so your foot stays flexed, drawing your right hip a little bit back. This is a really intense stretch here in lizard pose, so just take what you need breathing through what you feel. As long as there's no pain, a little bit of discomfort is okay. If you're feeling really good here and you do want that additional quad stretch, you're welcome to bend your back knee and reach your right hand back for the pinky toe side of your foot so you keep your shoulder in the right orientation. If that feels straining for your back knee at all, please refrain from taking that variation. You can take it another time. Taking a few more breaths, relax your shoulders, let your hips sink down with gravity. Good job. And when you are ready, go ahead and walk those hands back underneath the shoulders. And we'll tuck our back toes under, lift our back knee, and step it back into our downward facing dog. If this is too much here in downward dog, you can always be in your tabletop, maybe making gentle movements such as windshield wipering those hips side to side like you were wagging your tail, or taking anything else that feels good to release from that first side. And on your next inhale, lifting your knees, look into the space between your hands, and exhale, beginning that stiff leg walk, really a mindful, meditative walk of your feet forward to meet your hands. When you get there, feet underneath the hips, all 10 toes facing forward, and we'll go ahead and make sure that those knees are a little bit bent to really drape the belly over the thighs. This time taking the hands behind the back to interlace the fingers. If this is not accessible for you, feel free to hold a strap behind your back or a towel or a washcloth, or you can keep your hands down for this pose. If your fingers are interlaced, it will be a deeper stretch if you glue the palms together, so feel free to try that. First, working on opening the chest. You don't even have to extend the arms to roll those shoulder blades together in the back body. Then perhaps extending the arms up for the sky as you really let your head drop down and your belly is still draped right over your thighs. There's no gap between the belly and the thighs. If there is, bend the knees a little bit more. Taking a nice deep breath here in this chest opener. And then slowly releasing your hands down towards the earth. You may like to pedal out your legs a little bit with the hands down, walking out your forward fold. And then when you're ready, bending your knees enough to take your hands to frame your feet, fingertips in line with toe tips, and then stepping, sliding, wiggling that right foot all the way back, taking up a lot of space, just like you would in a plank pose. And really igniting your back leg, making it nice and strong and straight, and taking the heart to really reach forward, finding some length in your spine. We'll go ahead and press the right hand down into the mat and inhale, peel the left hand up for the sky. But as we do so, we want to make sure that that left hip is still hugging the midline. It hasn't swayed out to the side. Inhale to reach just a little bit taller. And as you exhale, release your left hand down. We'll lower our back knee to the mat and inchworm our left toes about a footprint forward to give ourselves space for our half split. When you're ready, you can shift your hips back halfway so that your right knee is supporting you at 90 degrees and peeling onto your left heel so that your left toes are flexed up towards the sky. That activation will help you to stretch out your hamstring efficiently and safely. Inhale to find a little bit more reach forward through the heart, lengthening the spine. And then as you exhale, really folding down over that leg. If it's too much, bend the left knee a little bit more. Or bend the knee a little bit more if you feel your back rounding. We want to try to keep our back straighter here. Imagine pressing the front of your right hip a little bit forward and drawing your left sitting bone just a little bit up and back so you can really keep those hips nice and squared. Taking one more breath here in your half split pose. And then slowly we'll inhale, begin to shift forward into our low lunge. And as you've made it, taking your hands to the inside of your left foot and toe heel your left foot to the left side of your mat. So it's a little bit wider than your hip for your lizard lunge. Hands come underneath the shoulders, and on the inhale, we'll tuck the back toes under and lift the back knee for just a moment. And as you exhale, we'll let that back knee fall a little bit further back behind us, untucking the back toes. If you're sensitive in your knees, you can always put a blanket or a small cushion underneath your back knee. You can even roll in the side edge of your mat to make a double mat underneath your knee for an easy cushion. As you're in your lizard lunge, let's make sure that the front knee is right over top of the ankle, or the knee is a little bit behind the ankle. What we don't want is too much pressure in the knee with the knee coming forward of the ankle. Then we'll turn our left toes out to a 45 degrees angle. And you can be up on your hands, or you can drop down onto your right elbow for a deeper stretch as you use your left hand to gently press your left knee open. And as you do, let's come onto the outside edge of that left foot any amount so that you keep your ankle active and your foot flexed. Turning your heart towards your left knee, looking towards the left, and pulling that left sitting bone back just a little bit so your right femur still feels plugged into the hip socket. Remember, only if the back knee is okay with it and your hips are happy here, then you can bend your back knee and reach your left hand back for the pinky toe side of your foot, taking that additional quad stretch. Listen to your body as you take a few more breaths here into your hips. Finding that way in. Noticing when you're searching for a way out. The mind likes to multitask. It likes to veer away from what it is that you're doing in the moment. So when you notice your mind wandering, celebrate that small victory of noticing the mind wandering away. And it's your choice to bring it back whenever you want to, coming back to your poses and back to your breath. Good job. We'll slowly begin to walk those hands back up underneath the shoulders, tucking the back toes under, and stepping that left foot back to meet the right, coming into your downward facing dog. And you can pedal out those legs a little bit if you'd like. Feeling free always here if you need to lower the knees, maybe taking a cow and a cat before you continue on. It's totally fine. When you do feel ready, no rush, we'll inhale to lift our right leg up and back for three-legged dog. And as you exhale, begin to bend your knee and make some circles with that right knee, just starting to really open up through the hip. And the next time your knee comes up high for the sky, hold it there, thinking heel towards butt as you kind of open up the hips a little bit more, trying not to put any extra pressure into the left shoulder. Preparing for our pigeon pose, we'll inhale to extend that right leg up and back, and then exhale to bend the right knee and bring the right shin forward to rest onto your mat. So your right knee is behind your right wrist and your right foot somewhere behind your left wrist. dropping the back knee and maybe scooting the back knee back just a hair as you untuck your back toes. If you need some support here, you can always place that cushion or block underneath your outer right hip. Feel free to stay lifted here with a little flexion of your right foot. If you would like a deeper stretch, perhaps using an exhale to fold down, maybe onto your elbows. Maybe making a pillow with your hands for your forehead to rest if that feels okay for you. And just monitoring yourself here. If you notice any pain in your right knee, please come up and away from the pose. You can always take some time to shake out those legs or give your knees and thighs a little massage. It's dropping into your breath here. Imagine that breath swirling around the outer right hip. And knowing that if you want to stay here and continue to stretch and breathe into the outer right hip, feel free to stay here. The next pose or variation of this pose can be a little bit intense for that back knee. So just listen to your body. If you'd like, you can press up onto your hands, keeping your legs in the same shape. And for your quad stretch, you can center your right hand and reach your left hand back for the big toe side of your left foot. Just listen to your body. If it feels okay, stay and breathe, pulling that left foot in. If it doesn't feel okay, just coming back onto your hands or your elbows in your hip stretch. And one more breath. Good job. Wherever you are, slowly bringing those hands back to the front of your mat. And one step or a few will send us back to our downward facing dog, remembering that can always be replaced with the child's pose, a tabletop, or even your cow and cat backs. Perhaps in your downward dog, just pedaling out those legs a little bit, bringing some fresh blood flow back to that right side. And when you are ready for the left side, we'll inhale to lift our left leg up and back. And as you exhale, begin to bend your left knee and make some circles with it, starting to really stir up that left hip, really warm it up and get it ready for your pigeon pose on the other side. Once you feel it's getting nice and warm, we'll inhale to extend that left leg up and back. And as you exhale, bending that left knee and bringing your shin forward, coming into your pigeon. Make sure that your left knee landed behind your left wrist. If it's a little bit centered or over to the right, just try again. Left foot is just somewhere behind the right wrist. It doesn't have to be touching. As you drop your back knee, give it a little scoot back if you can before untucking your back toes. And make sure that your front foot is flexed. You're a little bit more on the outside edge of that left foot than the top of it. You might stay lifted here if it's enough. If you'd like a deeper stretch, feel free to fold down over that left side, coming into your pigeon. Just starting to take some breaths here into your left hip, feeling that breath swirl around, clearing and cleansing, letting go of what you don't need to be storing in your hips anymore. Instead of focusing on something that doesn't feel good, focus on something in this moment that does feel good. Really watching your breath as though you would watch the leaves flow through the air with the wind. Each exhale allowing you to sink further into your stretch, but just monitoring your body. If there's any pain, you can always back off. Perhaps staying here in your hip stretch for a few more breaths. Or if you'd like, you can climb up onto your hands for your quad stretch, centering that left hand on your mat and reaching your right hand back for the big toe side of your foot. Just taking what you need for a couple more breaths here. Good job. When you're ready, walking those hands back onto your mat underneath the shoulders and pressing back into one more downward facing dog. Maybe pedaling out those legs again. If you are in a still downward dog, make sure you have a micro bend or even a deeper bend into your knees. It's more about getting your back nice and straight than it is about straightening your legs or getting your heels to touch the ground. When you're ready, you can begin to lower your knees down onto the mat, coming into your tabletop position. We're going to take a nice deep twist called thread the needle. You can either have your knees right underneath your hips, or I like to walk my knees just about an inch wider than my hips. For our thread the needle, we'll inhale to reach our right arm out and all the way up for the sky. And as you exhale, we'll begin to thread the right arm underneath us, lowering onto our right shoulder and the right side of our head. Our right palm will be facing up, and the entire back arm and back of the hand is on the ground. Pressing those left fingertips down and towards the ground to help you roll your chest open, stacking left shoulder over top of the right shoulder. Try to find space in the left side of your body by gently pressing your left hip a little bit further back. And breathing into the space below your belly button as though there was a sponge there. And every time you exhale, you're squeezing that sponge. And taking another breath in your twist. And to unwind, we'll press the left hand into the mat and inhale, sweep the right arm out and all the way up again to counter twist. And then exhale, tabletop position, right hand under right shoulder. Finding some length in your spine, just taking a pause. And then for the other side, we'll inhale to sweep that left arm out and all the way up. And then exhale to thread that left arm underneath the chest, lowering onto your left shoulder and the left side of your head gently. Beginning to press your right fingers into the ground to help you stack your right shoulder over top of your left shoulder. Really keeping the chest nice and open here. And just gently drawing your right hip back so you can keep length through the right side of your body and keep a nice balance between your hips. Breathing down into that imaginary sponge underneath your belly button. And when you're ready, We'll inhale, begin to unwind, sweeping that left arm out and all the way up for the sky. And exhaling into our tabletop position. Good job. Begin to sweep the legs out to the side so we can come into sitting, bringing the legs now out in front of you. And we'll revisit our bound angle pose like we started on our backs with. This time, taking a seated bound angle where the bottoms of your feet are together, your knees are wide, and you're sitting up nice and tall. If it's hard for you to sit up tall here, you can always sit up onto a cushion, or an easy fix would be to take your feet a little bit more forward so your legs are at a bit more of a diamond shape. Maybe that will help you to sit up out of the hips a little bit more. We'll take a breath in to sit up tall. And then as you breathe out, begin to fold down. Don't worry about if your back is straight or rounded. Just fold down and let it feel good. Letting your head hang down towards your toes, maybe using your elbows to gently press your thighs open. Breathing into your hips and your groin and your back body. Just finding that surrender here. Finding that way to tune in instead of tuning out. Taking 2 more breaths here. And then slowly beginning to rise back up to sitting. And bringing those knees together, walking your feet flat onto your mat. Make sure there's space behind you to lay down. As you inhale, reach your hands forward. And as you exhale, begin to roll down onto your back, 1 vertebrae at a time. Just taking some time to let your spine just neutralize on your mat, noticing how you feel. And as you're ready, we'll go ahead and hug our knees into our chest, giving ourselves a big hug. You may stay here, or if you'd like, you can open your knees, reach your hands through for the outside edges of your feet, coming into your happy baby, shining the bottoms of your feet up towards the sky and bending your knees 90 degrees. You can decide knees to chest or happy baby as you gently roll from side to side, just kind of rock from side to side, massaging out your back into the mat. And taking this time to complete your practice. If there's something that we didn't get to, like an inversion or a deeper back bend or a twist, feel free to take any final pose before you come into your resting pose. If you're really enjoying the hip opening and you want to take your resting pose in that supine bound angle where we started our practice, feel free. If you want to open up your lower back a little bit, maybe it's feeling tight, you can always take the opposite of bound angle, where your feet are wide and your knees come together to touch for constructive resting pose. Or, of course, there's corpse pose, extending your legs out long onto the mat, with your feet about the width of the mat, just a little wider than your hips. Perhaps letting your palms face up beside you in a gesture of receiving, or having one hand on your belly and one hand on your heart as that gesture of turning inward. taking your time to come into your resting pose. And when you do, continue to be with that intention of being here in this moment. This is one of the most important poses of our whole practice, where we let everything come together. All that flexibility that we've invited not only into our body, but into our mind. That adaptability to whatever situation that we're in, we can be in it wholeheartedly without wishing it away or living in the past or the future. So taking these next couple of minutes to just be grateful for this time that you've taken to slow down and pause and be present. I'll let you know when the practice is over, so really let yourself dissolve. Even if that means that you kind of fall out and into a little doze, it's okay. Just allow that to be part of your practice. Letting your whole body relax. Letting your breath be easy. You don't even have to control it here. Taking away the control and finding contentment and surrender. Allow that easy breath to be your anchor. Anytime you notice your mind wandering, you can come back to your breath. And when it feels right for you, you can slowly begin to deepen your breath. Begin to reawaken your body with gentle, peaceful movements. Maybe wiggling your toes and your fingers, or rolling out your wrists and your ankles. And taking a nice full body stretch, like you just awoke from a deep nap. And bend your knees and roll over onto your right side gently, using your right arm as a pillow, and just letting a blanket of gratitude completely cover over you. Thanking yourself for taking this time to stretch and be present in your body and your mind today. Using as little effort as possible, slowly begin to press up into a comfortable sitting position. Sitting up nice and tall, letting your hips root down into the mat. and your heart lift towards the sky. Taking an inhale to sweep the arms out and all the way up for the sky, gathering your practice. And exhale, pulling it into your heart. Thank you for taking the time to slow down and be present with me on the mat today. The light in me sees the light in you. Namaste.